All right, let's do this. So sometimes you go live because you want to interact with the people, and other times you go live because shooting, editing, and matching audio and all that for a full video is much more work. And this is the latter. This is just much easier because a couple things happened I wanted to talk about real quick. And yeah, I want to talk about Nate Diaz's message to the UFC because I did a video about it last night. The audio got corrupted, and it's a really important message, I think, like to note coming out of the fight last night. I didn't really think about it at the time, and I thought about it after, and I was like, oh, that's a powerful message that he's sending to them, and and then also Dana White called me a lunatic in the press conference, which is amazing. I've been having people hit me up with that all day. Like they're like, dude, Dana called you a lunatic. And I watched it. I was like, yeah, he did, dude. He did. And there was only like one guy who was kind of was a stranger on social media. They were being a prick about it. Hey, good going, dude. Good going. I was like, hey, my response was like, hey, what did Dana call you yesterday? He's all, what? I was like, what did Dana say about you? He was like, I don't understand. I was like, the answer is nothing. So, yeah, nothing. Nothing is what he said about you. Anyway, but so I'll talk about the Nate thing really quick. So, Nate wins his fight. Actually, you know what? Let me take it back really quick before I even say what he said, because I thought like this was really notable kind of when I was processing what I watched afterwards. It was like Nate was a lot more emotional throughout this fight week, in the lead up to the fight, in the post fight, than I realized. Like when I watched the interview, I had never seen him through that lens before. I'd never seen, to be honest with you, I would say I didn't realize that was under there for him. I don't know. Like I feel like there's a lot more passion in that guy than I realized before this fight week. And so I wasn't really looking for it in his interview. I watched 33 minutes of it and I didn't really see it. And like I said I think I said this on the live stream last night. I talked to Rose yesterday and she pointed out like she's like, he was like really emotional in that interview. And then I watched it again and I was like, fuck, she was right, dude. And then when you watch like when he came in, like I said, anybody who was watching the live stream last night can attest to this. When Nate walked in, right, I saw something in him I'd never seen before, or I was like, dude, because I'm always like trying to read people's energy, like where, especially when it comes to you're about to go get into a cage and fight another trained killer in front of the entire world. Like your mindset is important, and what I saw is I was like, he's nervous, and like not in a way where I would say that as a negative, not like a guy comes in and he looks scared, not like that. Nervous as in he wanted to win bad last night, where this fight really mattered to him. And that's kind of the thing. And the reason it's notable. I mean, it's like saying that about a fighter sounds ridiculous. If you didn't know Nate Diaz, didn't know who Nick or Nate were, and someone's like, oh yeah, you could tell on the entrance he really cared about whether he won or lost. It sounds ridiculous. Like, of course they care, but I think everybody here, all you guys understand what I mean. Like those guys don't give a, like that's their whole thing. They don't, they just, they're going to go in there. They don't care if they win. They don't care what, they're going to say they won either way. But like, I could just tell, like, he like really, really cared, dude. And I was like, damn. And that shook me up, dude. Like in terms of how I thought the fight was going to go, it made me lean a lot more towards him than I had been before. Anyway, but like he goes through, he fights great. He finishes Tony. He gets on the microphone. He's very clearly like emotional, right? Like this is again, this is like what I could tell in hindsight again was Nate was treating this like it might be his last fight in the UFC. Like that's when you really think, it's like, why would he have been felt the way that he did throughout that thing, is because to him, there's a chance that this is the last fight that he'll have in UFC. And I don't know. Like, I mean, it's like he's had a long career, dude, you know? And like, I mean, this is basically, it's been his entire life. Like, it's literally been his whole life. He's been a UFC fighter. And, but then he got on the microphone and everybody's wondering what he's going to say, you know, like, it's like, all right, like, you know, we've got all of this context. He hasn't re-signed his contract. You know, you don't really know what he's going to do. And the thing that he said is he threw a ton of love at the UFC. You know, it's like, look, like, you know, we've always had back and forth war, but I got nothing but love for Dana, Hunter. He calls those guys out by name because ultimately the UFC is a billboard, you know, the UFC is like a logo. The UFC is Hunter and Dana and these guys who were working there. They're like, when you interact with that organization, these are the guys who are the decision makers. Like, that's who he's talking about. And so for him to call those guys out specifically was a major sign of respect from Nate, for sure. And then the other thing that he did that was really notable, is he said he's going to go take over another sport, right? And so everyone's like, oh, he's going to go fight Jake Paul. That's not the only thing he said, right? That's what I've been saying to people all week, is like, really listen to him. It's not always like as simple as like, so yeah, he's saying I'm going to go take over another sport. You know what else he's saying? He's saying I'm not going to negotiate with another MMA organization. And like, if you think that that's like not a big deal, that's a fucking big deal, dude. He's going into unrestricted free agency. Okay. Do you understand how much benefit there is for fill in the blank MMA organization if they were able to secure Nate? Now, I'm not saying that he would go there, but Nate put it out there straight up. That's not what he's doing. Like, he's not going to better deal the UFC and go sign with another MMA organization. That's why it was important that he said, I'm going to do this in another sport. The other thing he did is he didn't limit himself. Like, he didn't put himself into a box where he said, I'm going to go box Jake Paul, right? Because A, that would, you know, make his negotiating position against Jake Paul awful, because he's gone all in right there. And Jake Paul, those guys are on shaky legs right now because they've tried to do a couple events in a row that they've had to cancel. Because right now the game between Nate and then Jake Paul's people, assuming that that's what he goes and does, is the same as most organizations, most negotiations, which is who needs who more, right? Like, well, what are you going to do if you don't do this, right? That's why unrestricted free agency gives you the most ability to earn, is because normally, you know, you're negotiating, but you're negotiating with limitations on what you can do, right? You're not allowed to go do that. You're not allowed to go do that. So you're negotiating, and, you know, your leverage position is soft. So what Nate did was he maintained a great relationship with the people who have been his sole source of income in terms of, you know, his fight career for the last 16 years, which is very smart. There is no money in bad relationships. That is never a good, like, negotiating hard should never come at the expense of relationships unless that is a casualty of war that was unavoidable. There's just no money. There's no money in it, dude. And so both strategically in terms of the negotiation, that's a good play, both out of respect as like a man who these guys owe each other a lot, dude. Like, Nate knows he owes the UFC a lot, and the UFC owes Nate a lot. And so he leaves on good terms, right? And stating that he's not going to go negotiate with another MMA organization is really important, to leave on good terms like that. You know, when I talk to people, like I do a lot of conversations with people who are in the middle of kind of negotiations or whatever, where they're trying to figure out what strategy they should implement. And they, you know, it only takes them a couple conversations with me to be like, oh, this is a pretty good resource for me to bounce ideas off of. And I find myself in those conversations giving the same feedback a lot to people, which is making them recognize when they have taken something personal and they're applying poor strategy out of emotion, you know, where it's like, dude, listen, At the end of the day, this is not personal. They might have gone out in the media and said something about you. That's not about you, dude. That's not a personal attack towards you. That's a strategy. And you reacting to it that way is not good strategy. This shit's not personal. This is business. But the reality is that, of course, there's an element of this that's personal, right? And I think that Nate telling those guys that he's not going to negotiate with other MMA organizations is a really strong move, both on the business and personal front where they intersect, you know? So congratulations to Nate. I thought he couldn't have done any better. I mean, he couldn't have done any better. And then Dana called me a lunatic in the press conference. I'm going to talk about that because it ties into every other thing that happened last night, right? So the context was that Dana said that there's a lunatic online who's saying that the whole Hamza Chimaev thing is a work. And I mean, unless you guys know another person who got, 150,000 views saying that the thing is a work, I'm guessing it was probably about me. But here's the thing, dude. Like, I never said I knew for sure. Of course, how the hell would I know for sure? I said that a million times. Like, what? But here's my entire position on it is like, and if anybody's like, if this is the first time that you've been on my channel, you'll never hear a negative word about Dana out of my mouth ever. Not ever. And him, I mean, just Dana's my business hero, dude. Like if it was like, hey, Jesse, like if all your entrepreneurship, had culminated in the success that you visualized in your best case scenario, what does that look like? I would be like Dana. And that's like across the board, not just what they built with the UFC, but how he was able to do it and how he was able to carry it. Like Dana does whatever the fuck he wants, because most people, they build a big, like people who don't really understand the mechanics of business, a lot of times think that because someone gets wealthy and they're in like the C-suite, that means they can say whatever they want. That's not the way it works. CEOs answer to the board or their shareholders or whatever, or, in both. It is extraordinarily rare where someone has the ability to do it like Dana. And I think that a major reason that he's been so successful is because of his ability to read people, read situations, and apply street smarts to the negotiation, whereby I was talking about this last night. I'm not sure. I can't remember which video I did it on because I did a couple of videos last night and one of them got messed up. I think it was on that one where I was saying like if you take a guy like Dana or you take a guy like me and you put us in a complex negotiation with equal leverage against some guy who went to Princeton, and this is going to, and we're going to have to apply like real strategy where we're going to have to plant stories in the media, and we're going to have to go and we're going to try to poison relationships that might impact this thing through this means or that means. We'll fucking eat him up, dude. Especially Dana, obviously. More proven track record than me. But like that, I really believe that like his skill set in that regard is one of the major reasons they've done so well. And I love that shit. So like Dana is literally my business hero. So again, the fact that if he saw my video or heard about me, that's nothing but upside for me. But anyway, getting back to the point of what I said, it's simple. The reason why, what on earth is she doing, dude? Giselle, if you send me another request, I'm going to fill in the blank something I wouldn't say live on the internet. Sometimes you got to talk to your daughters like that, dude. But yeah, the reason why I was confident that it was a work is the same reason I've been confident about other things being works, which is like, doesn't mean that I know for sure. I've been on the other side of these things where you show the public something different than what you're actually doing behind the scenes. Like, I mean, in addition to being on a reality show, like I got married on a reality show. The entire thing is completely fake. Okay. Like, so if I see something on screen, someone tells me something on screen, I don't just like watch it and go, oh, cool. Okay. So that's what's going on. If there are other things at play, if there's something out of place, right? There's like something that seems out of place. I'll look and go, huh. Okay, well, is there another explanation for why this incredibly bizarre thing is going on? Are there any other factors, kind of living around this thing that we're talking about that would also indicate that maybe there's something else going on? And, sometimes I'll be right, sometimes I'll be wrong. But like, I think that my initial, basically the genesis of my entire kind of, exploration of that just came from my confidence in Khamzat as a competitor and as a professional, right? Seriously, the most. Thank you very much. I think that's like that's the main point that I would communicate, is that me talking about it being a work, and this is just the honest truth, came exclusively from my confidence in the people who are surrounding the incident, right? Because the outcome of what happened ended up being a net positive for literally every single person involved, right? That's where I start looking at things. It's like, okay, so this happened, which seems to be like some random thing that doesn't make any sense or like seems out of place, whatever. But then the result is benefit, right? Like that's the same exact way how you sniff out these like, these, I'm not going to, sidetrack this, this episode, but that's how you sniff out, like, I don't know, the reason that they're saying that some medicine that works doesn't work, oh yeah, no, it's horse medicine. It's horse medicine, man. You are probably going to keel over and just turn into a horse if you take that stuff. It's like, there seems to be a lot of global studies that say that this works. Oh yeah, but it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And you're like, huh, all right, well, who benefits from us believing this ludicrous story that seems to be ludicrous? It's like, who's benefiting? And if you could source it to something, it's like, okay, so if there's someone who would benefit, that's where you get suspicious. So the whole point was with this, it's like everything fell into place so clean, right? Like everything fell into place so clean. And again, it came from my confidence in Khamzat, dude. Like, I was just like, dude, Khamzat Chimaev is the hardest work. Everybody says he's the hardest worker they've ever seen. When do you ever connect like a guy who is described that way by everyone who knows him and missing weight by 7.5 pounds, 8.5 pounds, or whatever, 7.5, 8.5 pounds? Do you know what I mean? It's like that, those two things don't connect for me. Incredible work ethic, consummate professional thus far. Missing weight by that much is incredibly unprofessional. Like, just bottom line, incredibly unprofessional. And so that's why I was suspicious of it. And then I started kind of backtracking and thinking through some other things that surrounded this fight. And it was like, okay, well, what else is kind of going on that's a little bit, uncommon? And it's like, pretty uncommon. You have Nate Diaz fighting against Khamzat Chimaev. Like, that's pretty uncommon, And it's like, and you have the first time I've ever heard the MMA community voicing things like, this is unethical, what the UFC did. A lot of these guys, I did, and for the record, I disagreed with that take and still disagree with that take. Me and Bisping were totally aligned on this. Like, I just remembered about Bisping because I saw it on Twitter, but he and I talked like right when I can't remember, like maybe like three or 4 weeks ago, and he and I talked, and I was like, I don't understand, like, why do people think that they need to protect Nate from a decision that he's making? Like, the UFC's not making him fight him. They offered him a fight and Nate accepted it. And so that is still my position on this. Like, I don't think it would have probably been a good outcome for Nate, but calling it unethical, just doesn't make sense to me. Oh my God, I just realized that my audio has not even been plugged in this whole time. So I've been on computer audio. Wow. Well, that probably doesn't sound as good as it normally does. I may as well get this out of my face though. But anyway, yeah. So, I wasn't on board with that, but enough people were to where I think that regardless of whether it was a work or not, the UFC dodged a big bullet there, right? So let's just, I mean, like, there's obviously no way for me to know what, like, 100%. And to be honest, I'll tell you, there are two things that kind of, like, I felt like everything fell in place for it to be a work. There are two things from last night that I was like, and I'll tell you what those were in a second. But the bottom line is whether exactly what they said happened or not, it ended up being a huge net benefit for everyone, and potentially especially the UFC, because the reason that that it made so much sense to me that they would do that is because the optics of Khamzat smashing Nate Diaz in. And honestly, now that I'm really thinking about this, because I hadn't thought about this since I kind of put together Nate's demeanor going into that fight. Like, if, Nate goes in there like that, right? Like, it's Nate's, I mean, Nate says he's going to come back and fight, which is, I'm sure that he will, right? But so it might be Nate's last fight, and Nate is treating it as such. Like, it might be my last fight in the UFC. He's super emotional. He wants to win super bad. And then in that fight, he comes out, he fights Khamzat Chimaev. A fucking monster, dude. I mean, we can just get into that really quick. Dude, he is a monster. And so the most popular fighter in the sport that everybody is like really endeared to also. It's not just like, it's not like Conor, like Conor is a bigger draw, but people's like their emotional kind of like connection to Conor as a fan is different than with Nate. Like with Nate, it's different, where, like they're more like, Nate's a more endearing character, like he might be like, fuck these shoes and like, fuck the UFC. But that's why he's so popular, because nonetheless, there's something super endearing about him anyway, where you're just like you like him. And like if in that fight he went out and Khamzat took him down and just pulverized him, and I'm not saying that would have happened for sure. Although, the first thing that I texted all my people after the event was like, I think that the fact that Khamzat didn't fight Nate was a great thing. Actually, that was just right after the Khamzat fight. But if they came out and then that was the outcome, and let's say that because Nate has exceptional jiu-jitsu, that Khamzat was not able to secure a submission, right? I mean, I know Kevin Holland is a black belt also, whatever, not getting into it. We're talking about hypotheticals. Like, let's say he's not able to secure a submission. And so he just uses position to make Nate be in defensive positions while he just pounds on him round after round after round. Like, again, I might be a lunatic that I entertained that this might have been a work, but I could say unequivocally to anybody that if how this would have gone is Nate and Khamzat would have fought, and Nate would have gotten taken down and beaten down, like really hurt, like the way, because Nate's so fucking tough, like he wouldn't have submitted, just pounded him. Nate Diaz, not just some random fighter, fucking Nate Diaz, dude. That visual could have been catastrophic to the brand. And anybody who hears me say that and thinks that I'm wrong about that does not know what the fuck they're talking about. Like that could have been a really big negative PR thing. And that's also the kind of PR that's not, I didn't even think about this, but like, I was just thinking about the backlash in terms of like, big UFC fans, but it probably would have, in that regard, it would have expanded beyond that, dude. Like it would have expanded beyond that probably, because if the MMA journalists, started really writing like this was an unethical thing to do that the UFC did, blah, 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 which again, I don't agree with. I don't agree with that take at all. But if they started writing that, that's the kind of story that might get picked up by bigger news, like outside of mainstream media, where it's like, oh, the UFC set this guy up, because the mainstream media, if you think that their approach to reporting is like, let's make sure we get the facts down straight. You know, let's make sure that we get exactly what happened. Like on Dana and them side, like we don't know what happened. Like, dude, they might have offered him 100 fights, and then the Hamzat one is the one that he finally took, which is probably almost like probably accurate, to be honest. Like it'd probably be like, dude, we offered him this fight, 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 this. So he has one fight left on his deal, right? You want me to rattle off all the fights I've offered Nate that he didn't accept? You guys knew he was doing. We were trying to do Dustin. We were trying to do Dustin this whole time. You think it was Dustin that was hard to get buckled down? It wasn't Dustin. Like we've offered him a million fights. Hamzat is the one that he accepted. Do you think that would matter to the mainstream media? You think they would even call them and ask for a comment, or if they did, that they would include it in the article? Of course not, because the incentive for mainstream media is not about reporting truth. It's the same as some slapdick YouTuber like me, whose primary metric is to get. That's not really true. I was going to say it's like to get people to click on whatever they're doing, because like to me. That's like, I mean, I'm not going to derail this about myself, but like, it's important to get people to click, but then I want the content to be solid. Like that's what does the talking for me. When someone clicks is like I'll let my takes speak for themselves. And I'm not saying I'm going to be right all the time, but the mainstream media, they only care about how many people read it, how much it's going to get shared, and thus they have nothing to offer except for what's written. So how sensational can they make it sound? You know, how sensational can they make it sound? And then think about this, dude. Think about this. If it really picked up some steam, if that story really picked up some steam, think about what these dishonest fucking cocksuckers in the media could do if they set out, went and looked for a bunch of interviews with Nate, and their goal was to string together a montage of clips of Nate Diaz that made him look like an unwitting victim that the UFC took advantage of. Think about that. Think about that. And the reason that I can come up with things like that is because I'm demonstrating exactly what I said about Dana and I. Like, these are like, if I'm over here and you're like, hey, your goal is to fill in the blank, fuck those guys. Like, fuck them. I'll find a lot of creative ways to fuck them, dude. Which is why I'm good at sniffing out when other people are potentially trying to do that. You know, again, that's what, I mean, if you play this out, there is a scenario where the mainstream media turns this into a sensational story that they can smear Dana with. They would love nothing more than to smear fucking Dana. They would love nothing more than to attack him for all kinds of shit that's not even true. You want to know why? Because he endorsed you know who. You know, these vultures do not forget, dude. They don't forget. And if they didn't know, and then someone told them, you know, oh, what are you working on? Yada yada. It's like, oh, you know, oh, Dana White. They're all, yeah, oh yeah, the guy, yeah, he endorsed, endorsed Rumble on Twitter. They're all, oh, well then all's fair in love and war. Let's just lie and cheat and make this out like this was some kind of organized assault on Nate. So the point is, there was tremendous risk in allowing that fight to go just because of the circumstances and the narrative that was already there. That's how things happen in the media. Someone plants a seed and then it grows. And those seeds were planted before the fight, before fight week, before any of that. And so again, maybe it wasn't a work, dude. Maybe they tripped over their dick and landed on $1 million, you know? But a tremendous amount of risk was mitigated the second that they shuffled that fight card. That's it. He called me a lunatic because I said that I thought that the Hamzat Chimaev weight miss and then the subsequent reshuffle was a work that was planned. So here's what I'll say too about things that I've seen since then where I was like, okay, maybe I was wrong. First off, I just talked to Danny Molina this morning, Anthony's coach, who certainly has a hell of a lot more experience in this stuff than I do. And he didn't think it was work. Like he thought, I don't think there's any reason why this would be bad to share. But anyway, his default was he thought that Hamzat got to where he was in his weight cut and thought to himself, like, dude, if I cut this extra weight, I might lose this fight. You know, it's funny. Someone said that to me in the comments last night, and I just dismissed it at the time. I was like, no way, dude. It's Khamzat Chimaev. You think that he's, and my rebuttal to him, which I will, stand by a little bit here, is like, I can't get to a place where I can get my head around Khamzat thinking that he's not going to be able to get Nate Diaz out of there in the first couple of rounds. Cause that, it's like, if he was worried about depletion, he doesn't cut the weight because of that. What he's talking about is that he's not going to have gas in the later rounds. He's going to gas out. Right. So, but again, like, sometimes evidence to me is just someone whose opinion I trust not agreeing with me. So that, like, again, I don't know. Here's the other thing. So if that was what was going on, a lot of people needed to be in on it in advance, right? Where like, and two people that were involved that I think we could say pretty safely were not in on it are Li Jingliang and D-Rod after last night, because they really did weigh in 10 pounds apart, right? And it was very obvious. So, I mean, if I'm playing devil's advocate and still trying to say that this is a work, like, if I can guess what the two of those guys get paid, and I can guess what my marketing or my, my fix-it budget is to make this go off without a hitch, I would imagine that we'd feel pretty confidently that there's a number that is not going to touch the top of this budget that they'll take to fight, But again, who knows, dude? I'm flattered that Dana called me a lunatic. But again, like, my response is just this. If it wasn't a work, it was a great outcome either way. It was a fantastic outcome if it wasn't a work, and maybe one that helped the UFC avoid one of the worst stories that they've ever had to face down, had it gone that way. And to be honest, if you really think about that, how that fight matches up in terms of what's the most likely way that this plays out, it's Khamzat on top, punching Nate a lot, and Nate being good on the ground and tough and lasting a long time. But yeah. So the 4 catch weight bouts. So in the event, it certainly lends itself to the theory that it was a work, but there were like, this is what I would, again, I'm just hypothesizing. I don't know. Like I said before, there was always something funky about this card, like, and like I said about, people's opinions that I trust. Even Chael said it. I did the video about their like the fight card and how light it was. Chael did a video. Chael, clipped talked about my video and said the same thing. He's like, I don't know a single person on this fight card, which means, like, he didn't get into conclusions of why or anything, but that means I wasn't crazy. Like, it means I wasn't crazy if that fight card struck Chael enough to do a video about it, then clearly I wasn't like just in outer space on it. Like, there was no one on that card. And so, like, so as a fan, someone texted me yesterday why I wasn't at the event. Because I've gone to, this might be the first domestic pay-per-view that I didn't go to this year. I think it is, but, oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't go to International Fight Week either. But then, and I said, I was like, honestly, because when I go to the events, I get a big, we do it with a big block of tickets that I buy. And then, it's like, there's a lot of kind of like facilitation. It's not just like, I just buy tickets and go. There's like a lot of work involved. And when I would have needed to do it, I was completely unconfident that the fight was going to happen. Like, I just didn't think the event was going to happen. or at the very least, there was enough risk in it happening that it didn't seem like a prudent decision to do the whole thing. And like, I've never thought that about another fight. That's never crossed my mind about a fight card ever, except for this one, where it was like, I don't know if this fight's really gonna happen. There was just always something, weird. And again, I've speculated on the channel, and I was thinking about this too, like when, I would say like 95% that it was me that Dana's talking about. And so like now there's another thing about this, right? Like I'm still not used to my channel being big, right? Like this is something that has happened very consistently this year, where I say something and then, someone big saw it and then like comments on it or like hits me up or whatever. And I don't know, like if I thought Dana was going to watch the video, would I've publicly said that I thought they were juking the thing? Probably not, like probably not. But yeah, but the way I was thinking about this, like the way that I talk through these things is like the way that I'm thinking and talking at the same time. So if someone just took a clip, right, just like clipped a part of my video and didn't really give the context on either side, it would look like I was just like Alex Jonesing it, like just definitively saying like, this is what they did. This is why they did it. Here's this, like, as if I was like, like as if I've like exposed something versus just like doing what I do, which is just kind of like talk out of my ass and hypothesize, because my favorite thing in the world. It's the same thing. The reason why I love those like heavy strategic negotiations, it's just like this. Like I like to try to think through, what people are doing on the other side. The negotiations is way more fun though, because then you get to like react to it and then, push them this way or whatever. Oops. Oh shit. Hang on. I saw that super chat. I lost it. Mike Reynoso. What's up, my man? There's no doubt in my mind that Dana was talking about you. Of course, dude. But again, like, I'm not like, that's awesome. Like, there's not one thing about that I like. When I heard that, I was like, no way. And like, I had a smile that was this big. Listen, like, so I've been saying on the channel recently how I am at a point where I basically attained the stage of my vision here, like where it was like, okay, I'm going to block off 2 years and I'm going to not worry about anything other than making sure that I create content every single day with no exceptions. Obviously I'll learn and adapt as I go, but not worry about where my viewer, like I'm going to do 2 years before I really look and assess like how well I'm doing. And then like the vision that I was thinking I would try to get to in my, if I was successful, is exactly where I am. And but that wasn't like going to be the end game. It was like, let me get to there and then I'll assess. And so I was saying like, I've basically gotten to the end of where I initially visualized going, but that's actually not true, because I also, when I do Rogan, that's the end game. And in my vision, I also knew Dana. So at least we're at step one. He thinks I'm a lunatic. I'm serious though. If I did a poll and all my subscribers answered, and the poll was basically like, the first time that you saw Jesse on Fire, what was your impression? And then like, something negative was the first one. There's gonna be a high percentage of that. And I do that on purpose. Like I do it. I don't do it as much now, just because now the channel's big enough to like grow without that. But I definitely did that on purpose before, just because, like I said, dude, it's like, if you understand every single outcome is ultimately driven by human beings making decisions. And so when you're trying to think of where you want to get to and what you want to do, you just ultimately need to think about who are the people that are going to be making the decisions that are going to dictate whether you're successful or not, and how can you influence that in a direction that's going to be optimal for you. And when I'm starting a YouTube channel in the MMA space with no ins, I don't know anybody. I don't know, like, I'm literally just going from scratch. Like if any of you don't have a YouTube channel, like you would tomorrow, just, all right, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And so your first problem to solve is, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it matter? And the answer is no. Like, no. And it does, like, so there needs to be a reason why people would want to come back to your channel after the first time that they see it. And just like kind of giving like a half decent take, that's not going to do it. That's not sticky enough, right? Like, it's not sticky enough. If you're some random channel with 2,000 subscribers, like, just having a good take, that's not going to get people to seek out your content. You need to drive an emotional reaction out of them, right? An emotional reaction. And an easy way to do that in this space is to make outlandish, not outer space, but like make outlandish claims that will make them want to come back and see you fail. Like, and be like, fuck this guy, man. That's that fucking guy that said blah, blah, blah. And thus they come back because they're like, let's see what this idiot said this time. Except you only do it every once in a while. And then now you got them to where they'll come back and they'll potentially actually listen to you. And then you can hook them for real. If your content's good. So Dana thinking that I'm a lunatic, that's step one of the entire strategy that I've implemented to build this channel. Brad Andres, thank you very much. The clips that came out about the chaos backstage were pretty weak. It did not look like enough to cancel the press conference. You thought, yeah, I completely agree with that. But here's the other thing. Oh, I didn't finish. So one of my jiu-jitsu professor, Steve Hargett, who does, he runs security for Canelo. When they do Canelo and those guys face-offs, Steve is the unassuming Asian dude that's standing in the vicinity of those guys who could fucking disjoint any of them at any time. And, but he said that one of his buddies that does security I can't remember. Yeah. I think it was security. I can't remember if it was security or someone that he knew in the crew, but he said that they were around there and said that, like, they're like, dude, the Diaz crew they had 50 people there, dude. And it was like, and it was nuts. And then someone else I know knows someone in that group. And they said they said it wasn't that crazy, but that they canceled it because it was like setting up to whatever. So like, those are people who were there who are like, yeah, it's legit, but I mean, these are both coming secondhand and, I don't know. Thank you for the super chat, Brad. I can't imagine why Tony would throw the fight. Like, I mean, first of all, I'm just going to say objectively, no, he didn't throw the fight. Dude. I could say this. I've never seen a UFC fight where I really suspected that a work was going on. I'm talking not once. Like, and obviously I'm not saying it's never happened, but in the UFC, plenty of times in other organizations, but in the UFC, I've never once watched a fight and even entertained that there was a work in progress. I just haven't. Like, I've never seen that there. Plus, dude, all joking aside, like I'm talking about with Dana and Hunter and these guys, like, these guys are like, you do not want those guys as, like, you don't want them to have a problem with you. I mean, a serious problem. And if a fighter threw a fight in the UFC and Dana found out, dude, like that would be end game for that person. Like fucking end game. And I'm not saying, fighters are reckless fuckers. I'm not saying that like there's no way that someone recklessly threw their fight if maybe they were like desperate or something. But like I said, if they did, I didn't know. I didn't see it. But there are fights in other organizations that are very sus. Because and really like a good way to assess. I mean, I've seen a bunch of fights in Bellator that I was very suspicious of. And generally they all had the same setup, which is you've got two people fighting that have a very limited time in their career remaining, right? Like whether it was, I mean, obviously like the fucking Dada 5000 and Kimbo one, that's like, there's no reason to even fucking talk about it. That was one of the most obvious works ever. But like other ones, I won't say anybody's name, but like in other ones, there have been fights where, I didn't know for sure, but it was a sus performance. And then you think about like the position that they're in. Like I'm trying to think of how old this dude was. But I honestly, I bet this fight, this should probably at least carve people out of consideration. But I bet the fight in the direction that it went, thinking that maybe they would like throw, and then they got knocked out in the first round. But like, if you're a fighter, it's like I talked about in the Tony Ferguson video. It's like, dude, you've got like a couple fights left. Like, just think about I'm not saying that Ken Shamrock has done it by name or anything, but like, I'm saying just like, think of you're like Ken Shamrock when he's 48 years old, dude. You know what I mean? Like, because he's still fighting. He's like 48. It's like, okay, he is obviously not going to be chasing a title ever, right? He's just getting paid to go fight, right? And he's doing it in an off-brand organization that is, if you're used to fighting for the UFC and then you go fight in like these smaller shows, I mean, it probably to these guys, it probably feels like they're just like, they just agreed to like spar some guy that was walking down their street, like in a garage, by comparison. And so it's just a thing that you're doing, but you can still bet on it, right? And you lost 5 in a row, right? It's like, what reason outside of just pure, transparent integrity, what reason would you have to fight hard and try to win? Or in some cases, Bob Sapp, dude, the guy lost, like, I think, what? Let's look that up. Like Bob Sapp lost like 100 fights in a row. I met him actually in 2016. Oh, he got a win on there in 2018. But like, look at this. Like, dude, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14. This guy he beat in the first 2 minutes while he was still fighting. 15, 16, 17 of 19 fights. 17 of 19 fights. Now, raise your hand if you think that there is a low likelihood that he threw some of those fights. Seriously. Like, just Go ahead and put it in the chat if you think like, no, I think he probably played all of those straight. You know? Let me check the scores and see if the Dolphins are winning, son. Dude, the Niners have been my squad my entire life, but they're playing at the same time as the Dolphins. And Mike McDaniel is family. So I am much more interested in the Dolphins than the Niners right now. And it's a really weird feeling. Oh, Niners are up 7-0. Nice. Dolphins 17. Let's go, son. Look at that. Dude, I honestly think that Mike McDaniel is about to like reside over a serious run in Miami. And it's going to be really, really fun. Because when we go to Miami, we stay at their house and we're going to be at the games. And like, dude, when I fucking love the NFL, man. Like I really, really do. And there was a time like, I think it was like 2018, whenever he got the coordinator job, like we were sleeping at their house. And I remember I talked to him where I was like, dude, if you get a head coach gig, put me on, dude. Just put me on, like just find a spot for me. And he's like, I would, dude. He's like, I would find a spot for you. But like, my life is a lot different now. Like I have shit going on. And also, like, first of all, I have no idea what he would put me on doing. There's not like, people think that like, if you're an NFL coach, you make a bunch of money. Like that's not correct. You make a bunch of money if you're a coordinator or a head coach. You know, like if you're a positions coach, they do pretty well too. But like, you know, the other people that work that, I mean, like they don't make a lot of money, like at all. It's not the kind of thing that you can just like, if you have my life that you can just be like, you know what? Fuck money. Fuck it. I'm going to go be quality control for the Dolphins. It's like, all right, well, you got a pretty big nut to cover during the month. Like, what are you going to do? It's like, Gabrielle can figure it out. OnlyFans. Yeah, maybe he wasn't talking about me, but probably. Trayvon, you didn't have John Claude as an usher at your wedding. If he's not your best man, then it's not even notable. So I didn't say Joaquin Buckley is a bad guy. I said he's scary. That's a scary guy. And I will say that again because it's not an insult to a UFC fighter. Dude, that would like Hamzat though. Then I'm talk Hamzat super quick and then sign it off. But like Hamzat, so the way I interpreted last night was like, oh, like Hamzat is back. Like, you know, he's just completely back, all the mystique, whatever. And I talked to someone this morning with much more like a much more credible person when it comes to like the actual matchups. And he thought that Hamzat's stock went down this weekend. Like I thought his stock went up, right? I'm like, dude. But he was like, no, dude. Like his stock went down because like missing weight by that much. And you know, and he didn't think that beating Kevin Holland was like a, you know, was very notable given that Kevin Holland is, you know, his wrestling is really light. You know, like he did okay trying to do like jiu-jitsu escapes and stuff, but like he was just basically saying like you can't take anything from that because when he fights Kamaru, that is a completely different universe. When he fights Colby, completely different universe. Like he will not be able to do that to him, you know? I mean, you know, I can't wait to find out. I really, really, really hope that, well, I can't say that actually. I was going to say I hope Kamaru gets his belt back and then you do Hamzat versus Usman. I don't care about it. I just want to see the fights. And I would prefer for them to be 5 rounds. And I would love to see a Colby fight Hamzat, dude. That would be amazing. That would be amazing, dude. That would be amazing because I think that it would look a lot like the Burns and Hamzat fight. Because if Colby can kind of nullify the ground game a little bit and then they stay on the feet, that would be incredible. Hamzat was right about casual fans flipping so easy. Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, because I was so suspicious of the thing, like I was thinking about this last night, that like I didn't even really, like I didn't interpret it the way that I would have if I like just took for granted that he really missed weight by that much. Because if he really missed weight by that much, and I had no suspicions that they were potentially shuffling the deck to avoid, you know, what we talked about, then I would have been like, bro, no one is allowed to cheer for this. Like, you're not allowed to cheer for Hamzat. Like, you're not allowed to fucking cheer for Hamzat. Like, at all. Like, not at all. That is, I mean, you know, maybe he can win your love back in a couple fights. But, dude, he was supposed to fight Nate Diaz in his swan song, and he fucking missed by 8.5 pounds. Disrespected Nate, disrespected the organization, disrespected the fans. Like, dude, no, you cannot cheer for him after that. But again, I didn't interpret it that way because I thought that there was a high likelihood that they were shuffling the deck. You know, the fuck do I know? What the fuck do I know? Who the hell listens to me? I mean, Jesus. I'm wrong about everything. But anyway, that's what I got. I'm going to go watch some football, eat pizza, and fall asleep. Love you guys. Peace.